Hello, everybody. I have Jonathan Carroll here today. He is the leader of the Dragonfly Club, which we'll be talking about, I'm sure, throughout the conversation today. And I'm going to give him the chance to just give a brief little like flyover of his story, but it's very much a common theme that we hear of trying to kind of go after all the things that we think are going to make us successful and happy in life, and then realizing that kind of ego driven life is maybe not what you thought it would feel like, and going on the journey of unpacking that and transforming into somebody who's authentically being himself, sharing his gifts and his soul work with the world today. I'm sure that you could probably go into some better detail. Do you want to give like the 2 minute version of your story, Jonathan?
2 minutes is going to be tough, but let me
I know.
try my best. About 7 years ago, I was working in a corporate job. I had all the things that I thought were outwardly successful looking, nice job, driving a nice car, a nice condo, living in the city, and was dating beautiful women and was just really what I thought loving my life. And it was a breakup that hit me pretty hard and brought me face to face with what at the time appeared as though I was living through some patterns that I didn't like, and unable to maintain relationships with amazing women. And that it wasn't about women, but that was what really brought me into this presence of, I think my words at the time were, I think I'm fucked up. And but like in a very hurt way. Like I really felt like what the fuck's wrong with me? And so I did something different than I'd ever done before, which was I hired a life coach, and I began looking at all of the different things that I'd never tried before, which were entirely woo-woo, Reiki and hypnosis and meditation. And I dove even deeper into fitness.
Can I ask what that was like for you, being somebody that's never looked at that and having this coach? Like what was your response to this stuff initially?
I love the look on my frozen screen is me just in sheer wonderment. Let's hope that comes back.
I know. If not, we'll refresh, or we'll figure it out.
Okay. So, what was the question? What was what like?
So I feel like oftentimes there's people that we know that are very spiritual that are very afraid to introduce Reiki and hypnosis and meditation to somebody for the first time. So I was thinking, what was that like for you? What were you just like totally open to it? Were you a little like, I'm not sure?
I felt so out of sorts with myself, like so fucked up, that I was willing to try anything. And so I dove into this, it's the hero's journey, right? It was like, literally, I'm ready for something brand new. And I know this isn't going to be easy, but I also feel like the guides are going to start appearing now that I'm ready. And so I was totally ready to just go in this totally different direction and try everything. And I thought at the time, I thought there'd be a silver bullet, like one of these things is going to work. And what I realized was it all works because the common denominator was me, and everything's complementary when you start looking at yourself through different lenses.
I'm like thinking, do I need to sage or do something? And every once in a while, I feel like with people who are just such like a light in the world, every once in a while, like I had this with the last recording, my friend's recording, there was just unexplainable technical glitches. And so sometimes
on live with, I don't know if you know Asha T. I was on a live with her last week and the same thing. And she said the same thing too. It was like, what?
Yeah, I'm like thinking, I have some things nearby, I think, actually. And I've been perfect. Even a lighter. So we're just going to take a moment to do that. That's just what I feel is needed right now. I also feel like I don't talk a ton about spiritual protection, but I do feel like as of late, there's been a big focus from my guides on it. I don't know. Have you had any similar messages or inklings?
Not as much lately, but about year and a half ago running some group programs, I was becoming more aware of the exposure I was having by holding space for people in groups, and
Mm,
nothing against the people in the groups, but as they're moving through vast amounts of different energies, it was my Reiki master who said, you might want to think about wearing protection when you're doing your group programs. So I ended up getting
mm,
an obsidian sort of metal or whatever you would call it, pendant that I wear around my neck when I'm running group programs, just to,
okay. That's good.
sort of protect my own energy.
I think that's a good tip. I think also during like the dark night of the soul moments that we walk through, because I do feel like when we're in a lower frequency, one of the themes I'm hearing interviewing people is that they're kind of this point of attraction for a lot of other things. So I do feel like if you could get that spiritual protection started from the get, I think that that's probably going to be very beneficial to not just attract things that are on that same
Well,
frequency.
and for your audience, anyone who's like new to this, I think something as simple as setting the intention that you're going to
Mm,
protect your energy can be strong enough in terms of bringing yourself back into sovereignty. And so
yeah.
that any external forces that are kind of like not super strong would be like, well, we'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, I like that. Let's also ground into this with an intention. What's your intention like to bring through, to be a channel for, to
I think
create
it
on this call?
matches what we're both up to, which is to um, create ways for people to gather in community that are in alignment with who they be and what they're looking to see as reflections in the world. So conscious community, I think, is a
Mm,
beautiful intention.
thank you. And my intention is to really bring through your story in the best way that I can with my curiosity. And I'd also say to have this show, this Rising from the Ashes series, be something that is going to find the right people at the right time to deliver divine messages in all sorts of way that we don't even have to understand. And to really just, I want to just be the love and yeah, the divine love on the internet. And I want to be a part of creating things with people in community that are what we think is going to really benefit the world right now. So that's my intention.
Woo! Ha ho. Love that.
So I'm curious, like, did you have an interesting or typical childhood? If you had to like tell me a little bit about like young Jonathan, like I guess I'd imagine you were probably like an overachiever, star student, but am I just fully incorrect on
Uh,
those assumptions?
yeah, not in the straight A's sort of way, but I was a good boy. Like I was
Yeah.
like the good boy who I probably got, B's and A's. Like I
That's
wasn't.
solid though.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. So I
excellent.
wasn't a
Yeah.
problem kid by any means. And I was probably the delight, for many teachers in the
Mm,
classroom. I got along with everybody in my class. I didn't really have enemies. I really was like a good boy. And when I channel and bring my inner child out into the world, it's largely who we see on screen and in person these days too, but he's a guide for me. He's really
mm,
a reminder of who I came here to be, is just like a good person.
yeah.
And so I look back at him fondly. I had a relatively normal upbringing.
Yeah.
Upper middle class kid, grew up in the suburbs, riding my BMX bike around the neighborhood, playing hockey out on the street.
Are you
Like
from Canada,
I'm,
Jonathan?
I'm Canadian, yeah, for
Okay.
sure. And so did lots of the things that you do as a suburban Canadian kid. Um, but my home life was not void of conflict. Mom and dad fought a lot. Dad drank in my youth, and he's 30 plus years sober now. But
Wow.
those were tough times. He would raise his voice, and he could be angry, and he could be um, what I see now as a lot on my sensitive boy. He was
Mm,
he was something I didn't quite know how to deal with. And so he probably pushed me further into the good boy behavior, right? It was like I became something I've been healing a
Mm.
lot recently has been my people pleasing. This
Yes.
need to be something for someone else in order for them to make it in the world. And so as I do more work for myself and help others step into alignment with their authentic truth, one of the things that really helps with that is knowing that your no is sacred, and no is a full sentence. And we don't need to explain why we're a no to anybody unless you want to. But
Right.
those are foreign words for someone who's, still caught up in being a people pleaser. And then a
Mm.
step further was the people pleaser. I think that if there's an even more insidious side to that, is this feeling that we need to prove ourselves, like we're not enough already. And so I'm going to be
Yes.
whatever you want me to be because I need to regulate my environment by making sure everyone feels happy here. So I'll bend myself to make sure you're okay. And beyond that, I think that the world needs to know that I am capable. So I'm going to project a version of myself out into the world that looks better than who I feel on the inside. So
Mm.
therein lies my journey and the work that I do now.
Yes. And it feels like this is what we're talking about. It's really our cultural conditioning. So I feel like no matter what kind of childhood people had, it does seem like it's something that we see showing up in ourselves and pretty much everybody that we interact with, because this is kind of who we were shaped that you're supposed to be a good, successful, loved member of this planet, right? And I feel like for you, tell me what kind of life that built, right? Because I know we're here to kind of really dive into this breakup that really shifted things or started you on into this initiation. But from that place, like, what were the kinds of things that you spent time on? What kind of life did you create?
Uh, Everything for a long time still felt pretty normal. Like I was still a good kid in high school. I didn't really get into too much trouble. I didn't rebel. I didn't do a lot of things that probably, you might imagine for someone growing up in a household that had some chaos. But I also probably normalized the chaos.
Mm.
And I also, mom was super hyper vigilant and safety oriented and really quite the protector, really worried about, how I would make it in the world. I've frozen again. I love it. And so it wasn't until university that I really got to like find some inner rebellion in me. But I did
Mm.
that through also wanting to put on an even more protective mask. And it came in, it was alcohol. It was like I could be a version of myself that was more
Mm.
outwardly confident, more magnanimous and party guy, and loved by even more people because I was the party. There were
Yeah.
aspects of myself that really I stepped way outside of my peaceful and calm nature to become this like everything was worth celebrating,
Mm.
until one day when it was not any longer.
Mm. Was this during the same time as the relationship, this pivotal relationship? Was this interwoven at the same time?
I had many relationships, throughout those years, and in university, less so. It was more womanizing and partying and not knowing how to relate on a one-on-one basis very
Mm.
well. I didn't have great. Um, I went to an all-boys high school, and so by the time I was in university, I didn't know how to socialize with women beyond just the party. And
Yeah.
so it wasn't until after university where I started to really date a little bit more long term. And that was, varying lengths of relationships, but still nowhere close to my abilities to communicate and to relate today. You know, like there was
Yeah.
that's been a huge journey for me.
Tell me about this like relationship and what it was to you before it ultimately ended.
Yeah, that's great. So when I there was a point where I realized like my life seemed pretty toxic. I was drinking a lot and womanizing and
Was
trying
this
to
university still or was it after?
after. Now
After.
I'm like
Okay.
working this like these like pretty high level roles in Toronto in the business world. And but living like a dual life, you know, like out
Wow.
late at night drinking and then back at work, like functioning alcoholic kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then it started with like no spirituality yet, just like I need to clean things up. And so I started with fitness and getting myself into shape. And I also it was also related to wanting to attract better partners at the time. I thought I'm not going to be able to do that unless I'm a better looking partner, you know? So I wanted to physically clean up as
Mhm.
well. And so I attracted this bright light into my world who was 12 years younger than me, a doctor, super
Wow.
awesome, hit it off really well, and started talking about marriage and kids and you name it. It looked like that was the trajectory
Yeah.
for my future. And over the course of our wasn't that long we were together, like it seemed like longer, but maybe a year and a half together, I had uh, broken up with her, I think 3 different times.
Wow.
Each time I would be back together with her the next day. Like I would like just go through this 24-hour, like, what the fuck? I don't even know what I'm doing.
What was driving those breakups?
One was um, this feeling like I could have my needs met even more with someone else.
Mm.
Never thought it could be within
Oh.
me to meet my own needs, you
Mm.
know?
So there might be some little thing that's maybe missing and you're like, but maybe if I
Yes.
had this thing and she was
Yeah,
that, so maybe that I can go find a different. This is
correct.
fascinating to me because I feel like more often I hear probably like um the female partner's side of the experience that's very in victim with that. So it's so interesting to see the
Uh,
opposite behavior of like, oh, well, what drives that kind of thing? Because I do feel like a lot of people that might see this, that I think you actually might be able to bring through some really amazing healing with the masculine by being
yeah,
so open and vulnerable with this. So I
yeah.
appreciate that a lot.
Oh, this is like this is I've probably never said it in its entirety before now, you know, and there was some part of it was like I thought I wanted more sexual partners or a different partner or something else, but um I also, you know, since having done lots of work around this, have realized that there's probably a subconscious or unconscious part of me that didn't believe I could hold that level of love, that didn't believe
Mm.
I could hold that level of partner. And so
Or
this,
maybe even felt a bit undeserving at the time, it
yeah,
sounds like.
definitely, absolutely. And so like if, as my first coach would say, you know, if I don't love me, how could I imagine a world where someone could? Right. So it's like a
Mm.
mismatch with my vibration and my own self worth. And so I'll have to sabotage this so that that matches how I feel about myself.
That's
Oof.
more comfortable, right?
Ouch.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah,
And so
it's
it's
not.
interesting because wow. So this went on for a year and a half, and you said that you had broken up with her 3 separate times. But
And
what?
she graciously took me back each time, you know,
Mhm.
and then it happened. And the third time I knew it was pretty close to like not happening. And then it happened a fourth time. But before I pulled the trigger, I had to get super clear with myself. Like I knew enough that I couldn't just keep doing the 24-hour thing.
Hmm.
It's so selfish too, like not realizing the turmoil I'd put this woman through in a 24-hour period because I was only thinking about me and what I needed, you
Yeah.
know? And the fourth time I was pretty clear, like I needed to get out and find something or someone different. And that lasted about a month. I think I went on one date during that time. And then I did what I had done before, which was my friend said, make a list and say it out loud as to what you're looking for. So I made my list and I said it out loud, and I realized it's her. Like, what the hell am I doing?
Hmm.
And so I waited even longer. I needed to get clear again. And I thought, I'm going to call her and tell her I made a massive mistake and I want to eat crow pie and see if she'll take me back. Anyways, so made that call, and she took the call really well. I thought she was going to bite my head off or something, but she said it must have taken a lot of courage to call. And long story short, she's like, it's not that simple. I met somebody, and I was like, oh, well, like, me better, so ditch them and let's do this. So cocky. And she needed some time to think about that. Meanwhile, she was still dating this new person, which was driving me mental inside.
Hmm.
Jealousy and just like fear that I wouldn't get her back, fear that I was so fucked up I wouldn't find anybody, and all the stuff that comes up with that. Anyways, in the end, she didn't. And that was the ultimate, like, cracking open of the seed. And that's when I hired a coach and started doing all the energy work and
Wow.
into spirituality and crime. But also, I took my fitness to a whole other level because I needed somewhere to pour my angst
Yes.
and my
The
anger.
body needs to move that energy.
I
How did
got
that support you at that time?
uh it was perfect. I was already on a fitness journey, right? Wanting to become a better version of myself health wise. But
Yeah.
now all of a sudden I had this fuel. The belief at the time, however skewed and fucked up that may be, was if I get fit enough and badass looking enough, she'll want me back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
So that was
sometimes it's good to see that maybe even if it was faulty thinking, that it still was positive for you. So it's
it
good
was
to
extremely
recognize it.
positive because it led me in this direction that I basically had reached my 40-year birthday, and my goal had been at the time that I want to get in the best shape of my life than I've ever been, because I knew that the very unhealthy version of myself as the drinking guy eating, fast food all the time was not who I wanted to be or who I was. And so
Yeah.
this fitness goal allowed me to arrive at my 40th birthday. And the plan was from there to be able to maintain that level of health forever. I would never need to do a major transformation on my health ever again. I would always be healthy from that point forward. So it definitely served.
So it sounds like that was like the initial catalyst that you dove into this fitness journey. What do you think, like getting in your body at that point in time when there was so much charge to this situation? How did that like support all the other things that you did from that point forward?
I remember vividly playing hockey, and I was in such incredible shape that oh my gosh, I froze with my eyes closed. Oh, great. So I remember playing hockey, and my hockey game had improved so immensely from when I had played as a kid, being like just an average, almost crappy player, to all of a sudden I was like scoring goals, and I was in this like wholly other level of not only fitness but presence. Like
Mm,
I would go out and play hockey, and I'd be having thoughts like spirit is playing this game with me.
mm,
Like spirit's moving through me, and I'm channeling that energy into my hockey game. Like I'm
wow.
capable of anything. It was
Wow.
insane. Like I was able to reach such immense levels of output, strength, endurance, speed, like running, weightlifting. I just felt like my body had become so pure and so switched on every level
Yeah.
that it was showing up in all the areas of my life. Like I was, for if you think about like one of the expressions I love using in my work today, I had become fully expressed. My
Mm,
DNA, my spirit, my mental clarity, everything was on full expression.
I love it. So I talk a lot about how like the dance stuff for me started like after my divorce, that I like felt like I had all of this energy. It's like I still had to continue showing up for clients and being a mother, and for myself, that like getting into my body through dance and essentially like letting, just it does really feel like that spirit moving me, expressing through me, like almost as if I push, like, like the like a reset button or some kind of self cleanse cycle on the dishwasher. Like this movement was like very, very powerful. And it came in at this very dark time when it was like, what do I do? So it sounds like there was some version of that that was happening for you as well, which I find really fascinating.
The expression issues are in your tissues. And so I think for many of us, simply using our bodies and realizing the capabilities in our bodies is one thing. But also moving energy and blood and resources, and like I used to love to say, groceries through your tissues really, cleans them out. It permeates them with oxygen. It fills them up with nutrients and blood. It gets stuck stuff out. And that's
Mm,
oftentimes emotional. I don't think I knew that at the time, but
yeah.
I was accessing a level of my physicality that was wholly available to me because of the all of the areas that I was accessing, from like mind, body, spirit, emotional,
Yes.
everything was just kind of like switched on. And so it makes me think like right now, I've been having this nudge recently of like wanting to clean up the diet a little bit, get a little bit more tight, polished, maybe a cleanse, maybe a fast, maybe all of the above.
Yep.
But that comes these days from knowing, having almost like a mental um, imprint, like a muscle memory sort of thing of what I'm capable of. And so when I'm off that a little bit, I
Yes.
know like, oh, the pendulum swung a little bit over here. I need to bring it back into middle.
Right. And I think that that's pretty natural, that like if we have, these different houses of life, lately I feel like I've been saying just expression is absolutely one of them. Health and our wealth, our relationships, our expression, that sometimes we might be tending to one over here and then feel like, oh, I've been working so much on my business that like I might have slipped up on some health things. Or I feel like it's, I guess, almost normal for us, is what I'm hearing you say, is that you have to kind of revisit these different areas at different points and revisit where you're at and what you need, and that it's going to change, it's going to shift over time.
Yeah. I think, when we're giving ourselves or affording ourselves the ability to be in presence, like
Mm,
we become tuned in to ourself, to our capabilities, to our cells, to our health holistically, then we know when something's off.
yes.
And that comes with two things. One is, like I said, giving yourself the ability to tune in, which usually takes, tuning out some other things, some, either distractions, or affording ourselves the time to sit with ourselves. And then it also probably comes from having been there before. You can't
Mm.
know, you can have an instinct that something is off, but you can probably identify what's off if you know when you've been on, so to speak.
When did the plant medicine journeys come into the picture?
That's relatively new. That's within the last 4 years, I want to say. And so I'd already been coaching. I'd already been kind of opened up spiritually, and
Yeah.
found myself at the beginning of the pandemic, on my way down to Ecuador to,
So that's when you started living outside of Canada, was the
yeah,
beginning of the pandemic? Okay.
yeah. And at the time, another authentic share, at the time, my coaching business was just not cutting it. I wasn't able to make enough money to maintain my fancy lifestyle in Toronto. And so I had to make peace with letting go of some things that were no longer in alignment, even though I desperately didn't want to. So one of those things was my condo, my lifestyle, and I'd been let go of my job, which is a whole other story, but it was a divine intervention.
Yes.
And I decided I was going to go and live in Ecuador because I could afford Ecuador.
Yeah.
But beautifully, it happened to be at the beginning of the pandemic. There was all this scare and talk about going into lockdown. And I thought, fuck that, just lock me down next to the ocean and I'll be fine, And so that's what I did. And it worked out quite well for my business at the time because I had become one of the most refreshing things to pay attention to on social media, because everyone else was watching about, social distancing and wearing masks and vaccines. And I happened to be frolicking on a beach and
I think I remember those posts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About how amazing life is and what was opening up for me as a result of me having a sit down with grandma. And, but I was also, and maybe not as sharing as much of this part of my journey, but I was doing deep healing work. I was really clearing stuff out that really was needing a lot of transmutation. And then my first summer back after year one in Ecuador was some really incredible generational healing with my dad, and around his drinking and the anger that I was carrying inside of me. And I was just releasing that and forgiving him. And it just was like this heavy cloud lifted, like the little boy Jonathan could come out and play. It was safe all of a sudden.
Wow. Yeah. I really have loved reading posts where you're talking about journeys, or some of them where you might be showing the person that maybe the shaman or someone that you are working with, interviewing them, or talking about the experience and the realization. Because I think that it's a very vulnerable thing to share. It's a deeply vulnerable thing. And I feel that so many of us have so much curiosity about these different experiences and this different plant medicine and what you felt and saw. Just like I love watching people talk about their near-death experience and going on the other side of the veil. It's like that same kind of quality that I would notice when I was listening to you share about these journeys. And I mean, what would you want to share about your experience and your journey so far?
Well, at this point, having had several sits with grandma and with San Pedro and Bufo, a little bit of psilocybin here and there, Cambo, I really believe there are some beautiful medicines that have been left on our planet or created for us to experience if we feel called.
If we feel called, that's right. Yeah.
I will never tell anybody to go and do anything.
It'll show up for you, I think, if it's meant to. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't go to Ecuador for ayahuasca, but I went to Ecuador and then it came across my view screen, and I had already been fascinated by this, the notion of it. It was like it was in my consciousness before I knew exactly what it was. And then I was listening to Aubrey Marcus podcasts and he was talking about it. And I was watching some documentaries about it. And all of a sudden it was like, hey, if you are ever interested, I know somebody. And I was like, oh, I think it's time.
It's time.
So I didn't go looking. It sort of found me. And I would never tell anybody, go do this thing. But if you feel called, what I would say is that there's such healing and expansive potential in these medicines that we are really just globally learning about its potential, like only a small handful. Oh yeah, look at that again. Small handful of people have really accessed or given themselves the ability to go and learn about. But also they deserve to be approached with the utmost respect, because we're talking about I don't mean respect in the like safety sense. That's part of it. But what I really mean is like the gift of being able to sit with grandma or some of these other master plants and medicines is massive. And so don't squander the gift. Take it
Mm,
seriously and listen to the advice or the common practices involved with prepping your body and prepping your spirit to go and sit with something so profound. I
yes.
think that too often people just think it's a cup of medicine and that'll fix everything.
Yes.
And it's not, because if you, for instance, ayahuasca, if you go in and haven't prepped your body and haven't done the cleansing leading up to, well, she's going to spend the vast majority of her time cleaning the toxins out of your body. If
Mm,
you go in with a clean body, she's going to help cleanse your mind of all the shit that's toxic in there. So
okay.
you decide what kind of cleaning you're looking for and how deep you're willing to go in advance so that she can
Wow.
do the bulk of her work.
I guess I wanna make sure that we're spending some time talking about, like, the life that you've created on the other side of that, right? Because this is about rising from the ashes, and I know that, I found at least that a lot of, my spirituality, like my the light and the love that I have, like it really was born in like those that darkness, right? That it's not really a time when you would feel like you're going to be handed all of these gifts, but it does feel like an initiation, right? We have these ancient mystery schools that we don't really see things like that anymore, right? But I do feel like life does have its way of initiating us and really kind of perfectly curating these heroes' journeys. So tell me like really like about your life and what it's like to have created what you've created and work with who you're working with.
Oh wow, what an expansive question. Um, Thank you. My life is incredible. I've reached a place where by any other standard, someone might find reasons to be fearful or have challenge with, my life, but I have reached a place where I'm so grateful for every moment and everything that I get to do. Like everything comes from this place of deep, deep gratitude. And so from that place, I just continue to attract more good. Um, the life I've been able to create. So first of all, I think I love the emphasis on create, because we get to be reminded that we are powerful creators, and life will life will hand you opportunities. The universe will give you the gift of opportunity, but it
Mhm.
really is up to us to do something with those opportunities. We are co-creating, I guess is the best way of putting it, with the universe, which means you got to get involved. You got to put
Mhm.
your spirit and your effort into that as well. And the way I think of how I've done that, one of the most I guess the easiest metaphor for me is to think of yourself as an artist. So,
Mm.
what is your gift, and then realize it's an art. And so you want to get good at your art by practicing it, but you also want to put it out there for the world to see. And many people, I think, in the online entrepreneur space, people I work with, clients, and so on, but also anyone listening to this, sometimes struggle with that because they haven't reached a place of full confidence in their gift or their art is worth being seen by the world. And
Mm.
so they're measuring themselves by some external standard rather than creating art because they love making art. And when you create for yourself and then put it on a wall for someone to view, someone might take notice. Many people might also take notice, but
Mhm.
that really also comes from the amount by which we're picking up the brush and painting, so to speak. Like the more you practice your art, the better you get at it. And I think an important piece of what I'm saying here is about not hiding, right? To be in a place where you're not hiding your art from the world, and you realize that your art is as important as anyone else's.
Mm.
Like let that land. Your art is as important as anybody else's. And if you're hiding it, then it's hard for us to compensate you for your work. And if you're hiding it, we don't get to see you. We don't get to see your authentic expression, and we don't get to see what you're capable of. And
Mhm.
your art happens to be, whether you believe it right now or not, one of the pieces of the puzzle that make up the whole.
I love that. Wow. I feel like watching how the Dragonfly Club has unfolded, and I know that there's various different experiences with that, right? But I've known like certain people or have watched certain people's journey since we have some mutual connections, some mutual friends, and that's something that I have noticed is I have noticed some shifts where people have shared some amazing gifts where it's almost like, wow, like where did this version of this person come from? And like just some really profound transformations of people really diving into this like soul gift that is incredible, right? And so I think when I often think about the Dragonfly Club or the people that are in your presence, I will absolutely speak to those transformations and what I notice the energy over there is
Thank
really
you.
about. It's powerful.
Yeah, it's so the flagship, the original Dragonfly Club, it's morphed into something much bigger with multiple different arms, I guess is the way of putting it. But the original is now been rebranded as the Metamorphosis Experience, and that's something that I'm currently offering starting at the beginning of next month on the new moon. That 12-week program is really designed to help bring people into full alignment with their authentic truth and
Mhm.
to shed any subconscious or conscious beliefs about whether that truth is worth being seen by or shared with the world. And
Mhm.
so, in the presence of safe and loving and sacred community, in a container held by me and the frequency I'm holding for everybody in there to spill out, we get to realize what parts of ourself feel not like they're not ours. The metaphor I use is we're going to go in, we're going to unpack the entire backpack, and we're going to lay it all on the floor. And then you're going to start pointing at things and decide that's not mine. Somebody else put that
Mm.
there. I don't need to carry that any longer. And so we're just going to get rid of it. And
Mm.
then we're going to repack the backpack with all the things that are just ours. And we're going to walk lighter. And so the inspiration is the nymph moving to the dragonfly. The nymph crawls out of the
Mm.
safe waters.
I when I first realized that and I looked up that story, I was like, "Wow, I had no idea." That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So the nymph then its back splits open, it comes out of its exoskeleton, and out comes this dragonfly with its bright iridescent wings and beautiful colors, and it takes flight. And so that's the whole inspiration behind it, is that we've got some things that are holding us back, and
Yes.
we all get the opportunity to be witnessed coming out of our shell, out of our exoskeleton, and taking flight. And then we're all fanning everyone's flames as they do that.
That nymph must feel like it's dying, right? It might actually feel like, "Oh my gosh, this might be death for me in this moment." And so I feel like some of these dark night of the soul moments are so intense because you feel like you're dying and it's true. There's like parts of you that are, and that is an intense process. And it happens internally. So I feel like there's so many people that are just showing up to work and you're, waving to neighbors that are like having these like deep internal moments of and I guess I just feel like I want to mention that because I think I want people to think about if someone's maybe short with you or seeming overwhelmed to just I mean, do you feel this as well that there's a lot of these initiations that are happening for people in the world and increasing basis right now?
Gosh. The world right now is, I heard it described really well by another spiritual leader I follow on social media, but was sort of saying that the world we're seeing with all the conflict going on right now and division
Hmm.
is like Gaia or Pachamama or Mother Earth's, external expression of what's going on from its internal consciousness. And the internal consciousness is all of us. And
Yes.
so there's like pimples that need to be popped. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And it's expelling toxin at the moment. And so I really believe that there's many people going through awakening processes right now. Nice freeze, buddy. Um, and uh, and and feeling like they're being called into something net new that they may not have full clarity on what that is. Maybe they're hearing
Yes.
you and I talk about it right now, and it's like, ooh, something about that sounds like where I'm going, but I still don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And to be in this place of trust and surrender that you're moving in the right direction, or you may not know what direction you're moving in, but to trust that too. And that for the rest of us, it's like the iceberg. We can see 10% sticking above the water. That's the smile and the wave you talk about, someone going to work
Mm.
in the morning like, how you doing, neighbor? But
Yeah.
90% of them is below the surface, and we have no idea what anyone's going through. And so to give everybody an ounce of grace that everyone's doing the best they can with the tools they have. And we were once there too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So what I want you to do, Jonathan, is I want you to look at the camera as if you can just like really speak to the people that you feel called to speak to right now. And maybe they're watching this. Maybe they've just gone through a breakup. Maybe they've just like lost this job and they're like, what the hell am I going to do at this point? And just say whatever you'd want to say to that person or maybe that past version of you.
Whew. Beautiful. Let me just get present. Take a shoe off and get grounded here. I want to start by saying you are in safe hands. You are supported, that you are held by the universe, and you're not alone. And that there are opportunities for you to continue on your journey, knowing that everything is coming up for you, however challenging that may feel or seem or appear from your internal and external eyes. And that this may or may not be for you. There are guides who will appear along your path, and they will come in the strangest of forms when you sometimes least expect it. And to follow the internal nudges rather than the logic of your brain.
Mm.
Um, and so for the work that I do, for those people that may resonate with what they've heard today, is about really taking you through a very rigorous 12-week deep dive journey into all the parts of yourself. And I do that in a variety of ways, and every week looks different. But the idea is that we're going to continue peeling back layers until we get to the core of who you be. And then from that place, we're going to use loving eyes and loving intention and all the perspectives of the people in the group to shine love into you and let you see yourself through the eyes and the lens that we see you with. And then we're going to
Mm.
call you into presence and call the parts of you that we think you're still hiding, and we want to evoke more of you out.
Wow.
Then you get to be in this place of seeing yourself with the loving intention that everyone in this conscious heart center group sees you through. And we're going to ask you to start amplifying that into the world.
Mm.
And so if any of that feels like a journey you're ready to embark on, then I would say come join us in the Metamorphosis experience. We're ready for you.
Wow. And I think there's a Dragonfly group as well on Facebook. And is that typically where if people are curious, is that a good place for them to get started?
That's the first place to start. It's free. Join the group, come on in, get a sense of the vibe, the energy, the people there. You'll see invitations and offerings made by me and other people as well. And it's an easy way to get kind of immersed in the vibe of the Dragonfly Club if you're not in a position where you want to put money down for a deep dive experience just yet.
And what are your favorite places to create your art at the moment?
I was telling a friend the other day that sometimes I get downloads from spirit, and one of the best ways that I can express those is in Canva.
I
I
love it. I
love,
love Canva.
right? I feel like, oh my gosh, in order to express this to the world, I got to go and design it. And so that I take a lot of pride in doing pretty much all of the art for all my programs. I wouldn't say that that's for everybody, but that's one way that I like to express my art.
Yeah.
It's also in my writing and the way that I show up on social media. I really believe that I want to highlight for people, like I said earlier, that you can make money, right? You can make a successful business by being you. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
mean by being me. And I don't mean by being loud. I just mean by being you, whatever that looks like. And so a lot of the people that I find myself working with, we're figuring out ways to make social media a canvas they can use rather than the
Mm-hmm.
canvas it looks like it's supposed to be for everybody.
Mm. Yes. Yeah. That is a big journey. Like, I feel like rather than, I've definitely been continuing to adapt because I do find that there's times when my life has changed. And so it's almost like I need to roll with allowing what I create maybe to change rather than just forcing it to be what it needs to be, or used to be. So that's powerful. And Facebook would you say, is that the main place? Or are there other platforms that you
I'm on
like right
Instagram
now?
and Facebook, but it's a
Instagram and
night
Facebook.
and day difference. The engagement on Facebook is way higher. I feel like I'm actually in a dialogue with people on Facebook more. It just happens
Yeah.
to be a place or an environment that seems to be working for me. And so it's almost like the same content as on Instagram, but it doesn't get the same
Yeah.
results.
So if people search probably Jonathan Carroll or the Dragonfly Club, they'll probably be able to find your group on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm not, I'm not one of these like unreachable. Send me a friend request, we'll connect. Send me a DM, we'll connect. Join the Dragonfly Club. It's free and easy, and so happy to grow network with conscious, heart-centered folks.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, for really sharing your vulnerability and your truth. And I feel like there's so many different aspects of this that I think are going to hold such beautiful healing energy for people that have maybe been setting that intention of finding healing or releasing something. I feel like there's so many little moments that I already see. I was like, oh, that's a powerful clip right there. So thank you for rolling with our technical surprises today, and for just being so gracious with your truth and your time and your vulnerability.
Thank
I greatly
you.
appreciate you.
Well, I genuinely appreciate and thank you for the invitation to be here and to share some of my love and my art with the world. And I look forward to connecting more with you and with anyone who feels aligned with connecting with me as well.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.